Front handspring exists in this weird place where everyone knows that it's an easy trick, but if you're learning it, then it's extremely likely that you are a beginner or you're just really early on in your tricking career. But even if you're experienced, maybe it's just an awkward movement or a trick that you've never tried before. Either way, I'm gonna try and break it down for you the best I can while trying to be succinct. Before we dive into the methods, there are 3 different body shapes or movements that I think are very important for you to be able to do before you learn how to do this. That is a handstand, because you're gonna need to be able to support your own weight and make sure that you're comfortable having your feet above your head and hands. You'll need to be able to do a bridge of some kind. It does not have to be perfect. I don't have a great bridge at all, but you need to be able to at least push up into a bridge position for shoulder flexibility and hip flexibility. And then some kind of hand to foot dynamic movement, like a cartwheel or a round off or something. I've made videos on the handstand, cartwheel, and round off if you need to check those out. Link will be in the description. Once you have those prerequisite movements down, then it's time to try one of the methods. So here are 3 ways to learn your front handspring. There's the traditional way, the flexibility way, and the tricker way. We're gonna go in that order. So for the traditional way, what you want is a roller block or a hay bale or something that is soft enough to where when you lay on it, it's not gonna hurt you, but rigid enough to hold you up so it's not just like flopping over or something. You want this to be anywhere from your waist to your chest height, somewhere in there. I wouldn't go higher or lower than that though. And I know a lot of you who are watching tutorials on YouTube are just like out in your yard or something like that, and you're gonna say, oh, well, that's nice that you have access to a gym. Look, I said a hay bale. You could just Google search hay bales in your area and find it at like Tractor Supply or Craigslist or something. Let go of your limiting beliefs and don't let little obstacles like that get in your way. Never give up. Once you have that piece of equipment, then it's relatively simple. What you're gonna do is you're just gonna walk up to that thing, put your hands really, really close to it, do a handstand, and just lay down on it. This is gonna get you used to that feeling of like stretching your entire body out, and it'll get you comfortable with like a little bit of momentum, because again, if you're trying this for the first time, you're probably not really comfortable with this movement. Make sure you keep your arms as straight as possible. Come out of this, however, because you're probably not going on the other side. Then reset and try to do this like walking up to it. So what you want to focus on doing is keep your arms as straight as possible. Try not to bend them at all, and try to make sure that you are keeping them in line like this and not like reaching forward like this. We'll talk about why later. But if you can do this while you're walking up to it, plant your hands and kind of go over slowly, you should be able to make it to the other side of the roller block. I would recommend, especially as a beginner, to walk out of it like this rather than trying to land on both feet. It's just gonna be a lot easier for you if you land this on one foot moving forward. Either way you land it, you want to focus on pushing your hips forward as much as possible as you're landing, and then your head will follow as long as you squeeze your abs while arching or you have enough momentum. Learn this now, otherwise it's going to be way harder for you later. The block you're using should be low enough to be able to kind of go over this as if you're like a teeter-totter or something and go slow like this. If you can't, then you probably want to get something smaller. Then just repeat the process and walk faster and faster and faster until that's easy and you can just kind of like walk out of it at the end. Then you're just gonna keep adding more and more power and trying to run into it as fast as you can, using a hurdle as if you're gonna like run into a round off, but then you just go forward. Your goal at this point is to try and go over whatever you're going over. So instead of touching it, you're trying to do your front handspring and like arch your back and push really hard and try to like make sure that you don't touch it as close as you can. This is probably gonna be virtually impossible depending on your height and the height of the block and everything, but you should try to do it as best you can, because it's gonna make you comfortable kind of like hucking the trick while still having a safety net. You're trying to go over it and you're trying to learn that front handspring, and it's gonna feel a little scary, but it'd be a lot scary to just huck the trick, right? So with this, if you mess something up and you put your hands in the wrong place or something, then the block will still catch you. A few key things you wanna focus on are keeping your arms by your ears. Back in gymnastics, they used to say,
your ears are ugly. I don't want to see them. Keep your arms by your ears.
Gymnastics coaching. Probably not Stockholm syndrome. But the reason you want to keep your arms by your ears is because it keeps your body in a straight line, and if your arms go forward like this and they plant, then it puts a lot of pressure on your shoulders, and it's most likely going to make you roll or just crack your neck or something. Don't do that. Make sure once you feel your hands plant, you really firmly plant them, and then everything feels like you're doing a bridge from that point. You're just bridging over, and then you flick with your wrists. You should feel a stretch through the entire front of your body. And then when you do have your arms up, you really don't want to bend your elbows that much. You want to push through your shoulders if you can. But yeah, do this over and over until you're comfortable with it, and then take away the roller block and try it, and most likely, you have a front handspring. The flexibility way. This method is extremely slow but extremely safe. So if you're on the more timid side, this is probably the one for you. And before we start, I can't personally do this method. I never have been able to, but I've taught countless students to do this in like tumbling and tricking. My favorite way to start this is to do a handstand up against the wall with your back to the wall. Just touch 1 foot or 2 feet and then come down. Then you want to walk your hands back like a couple inches and try it again. Keep repeating that process until you're far away from the wall and you're gonna be like in this weird bridge motion. It's gonna feel really scary at first, but you wanna get comfortable with this. Again, this could take like weeks or something, you know, take your time. But you're gonna keep doing it until you can walk down into a bridge. Just make sure whatever surface you're doing it on is sturdy enough and it's not gonna kill you. But keep doing this until you can walk down into a bridge and then walk back up the wall and land on the other side, like a back bend walkover. Then on a soft surface, practice handstand to bridge. It's gonna feel a little scary at first, but you just did this on a wall, so just do it really slow and try to like separate your legs and then land on both feet to start with. It can be like one at a time. You're just gonna need to land on both feet, probably, unless you're extremely strong and flexible. Then, probably a few weeks later, once you've built up this flexibility and strength, try to land on 1 foot. You're gonna land on only 1 foot. I would argue that you wanna land on the foot that you kicked with at the beginning. So I like to kick with my right foot, so I'm gonna land on my right foot and keep my left foot in the air. Theoretically me. Then, probably months later, you're gonna try and walk out of that and do a front walkover. So you're going to do your handstand to bridge and try to keep that foot up and push your hips forward and take a big step and stand up out of that. If you can do that, then you're doing a front walkover, which in and of itself is an extremely useful trick and a good movement, and it'll help you with a lot. So learn it if you can. Then you just run into it and add speed and you've got yourself a front handspring. The difference between front walkover and front handspring is very subtle. There's no like perfect definition for one or the other, or like where one stops and the other starts. But essentially, if you're running fast and you do a front walkover and you even clear the ground with like this much space, then you're doing a front handspring. If you are like going kind of slow and your hands and feet are touching the ground at the same time as you're going, then you're doing a front walkover. That's the best way I can really describe it. When I do front handsprings out of stuff, like in this clip, it feels like a front walkover to me because I'm just like rolling straight through it, right? But I already have a heck ton of momentum, so I would consider that a front handspring or something. And now for the tricker way. Depending on how long you've been tricking and how good your cartwheel is, this could be the fastest for you. You want to start by doing a cartwheel from a tricking setup. Then you want to do a cart semi or tinsika. To do that, essentially you're just doing a regular cartwheel, but you're turning your hips at the end towards your dom or direction of momentum. Try to walk out of it as best you can by pushing your hips forward and keeping one leg off the ground for as long as you can. Again, you want to land on the leg that you kick over with first. Do this a bunch and get really comfortable with it. Slowly turn those hips more and more until they are completely facing your dom as you're landing. It's gonna feel like you're turning, but then when you watch the footage, it doesn't even look like your hips turn. It's kind of weird. But then we get to the turning point. Yes. While you've been doing this, your hands are sideways, but what you want to do is you want to turn your hands towards your dom or direction of momentum. So instead of them landing like in line, they're gonna land parallel with your fingertips facing your direction of momentum. Make sure you kick hard and you keep your speed and really like drive to the ground with your feet on this. If you do that, then you're technically already doing a front handspring just from a trick or cart setup. It's a simple change, but it makes a dramatic difference in the look of the trick. Then, if you've practiced it a lot and you have the feeling of this, then you just run as if you're going to do a round off. So you do the run hurdle and you just reach forward like you're doing a handstand and you feel like you're doing the tinsika, and bam, you've done a front handspring. Then just run and add momentum to your heart's desire. Let's move on to common mistakes. Not enough momentum. A lot of times when people are learning this, they're trying to learn it from a standstill because it's scale weight to 1. I'm not trying to be condescending. It's just that you're trying to learn a flip over your head. So you're gonna have to like use a lot of momentum. So make sure you're running into this, or you're using the cart semi method so that you're really feeling the momentum. Running really helps on this, but if you don't have a lot of room or your surface is kind of slippery, then running into it is not gonna help you that much. But the momentum really comes from your legs flipping over your arms and the rest of your body. So as long as you're kicking extremely hard and you have a ton of momentum in your feet flipping over your head and you push correctly, then you're gonna do a front handspring. The next common mistake I see is bending your arms too much. I kind of do this a little bit. It depends on, like, again, how much momentum I have, but you want to keep your arms as straight as possible. If you bend them for power, it doesn't actually help that much, because in a front handspring, your arms are just like the fulcrum of the lever system, right? So your momentum is pushing over, and you need to block that momentum using your arms. So you got to stay really stiff and rigid as the rest of your body bends around your upper body, and then you push through your shoulders. That little bounce that you get from your shoulders and that flick of your wrist is helpful for sure, but if you don't have the extra momentum, it's going to be almost impossible unless you can like do an omega bomb or something. Then you could just throw yourself into it using your arms. So especially when you're learning this, try to keep your arms as straight as possible. Otherwise, all that it's really going to do is lower your center of gravity and make it harder to land, and less likely for you to even like flip in the first place, because you don't have much to push off of. The next common mistake I see, especially with beginners, is tucking to land. At the beginning, this can be helpful because it's like speeding up your flip and it's allowing you to land, but it's not really helpful in the long run, because one, if you are bending that much, then you are landing and taking the impact with your joints and not with your muscles, and it's going to hurt. Oh. Eventually, even if like most noobs say like, oh, it doesn't hurt, it's fine, bro. Yeah, I'm good. That didn't hurt. Eventually, we want to look like we're wearing a dark wood grain ring from Dark Souls. The next common mistake I see is not reaching far enough forward. So while it's important for you to keep your arms up, you actually want to almost put them behind your head a little bit. You want to think about your footprint of your like motion of the trick to be like really big. So what I mean by that is you want to reach as far forward from your feet to your hands as possible with enough momentum, because then that will launch you. If you look at gymnasts do this, they freaking launch themselves forward and get air time before their hands even land so that they can do bigger tricks and stuff, or skills. But reaching forward like that while your body starts to flip behind you with all that momentum is highly advantageous and will help you extremely to flip over yourself. If you reach down like I do in some of these examples because I'm trash, then what can happen is your body is kind of essentially like doing like a dynamic planche, and that puts a lot of strain on your shoulders. So your shoulders will just collapse, and again, you'll either hit your head or you'll roll. So if you're trying this a bunch and you're just rolling, it's probably that you're putting your hands down close to your own feet. This can also cause you to bend your arms too. So it may be that you think you're keeping your arms straight, but you're reaching down, which actually makes you bend your arms and your body, and then you're doing a front handspring like this, and that sucks. And the last common mistake I see a lot is not arching enough. Now, while it's really important to have good shoulder flexibility in your bridge motion, a lot of times what actually holds people back is their hip flexibility, and specifically your hip flexors not pushing forward enough and not having as much bend in the hips. Whether you're landing on 2 feet or 1 foot, pushing your hips forward is highly advantageous, and it'll just help you look more like a pro, and it feels so much nicer on your body. It's just like the smooth motion, and it feels like super nice rather than just like taking all this impact at the end and be like, yay. So my recommendation almost always is to land on 1 foot and step out of it. This will even help you with things like Webster in the future anyway. So yeah, I hope that helped you learn or improve your front handspring. And now, while I'm the free Kojo's Trick Lab that your mom has at home, if you want to learn from the best of the best and get content on a more frequent basis than I apparently can, then sign up for Kojo's Trick Lab using my affiliate link, kojostricklab.com/ZF. I will personally get a kickback if you sign up. Link is in the description. Thank you. And thank you so much to my patrons who have stuck with me through my my quiet time on this channel recently. This is actually a video that I'm making for a patron who's no longer a patron because I took too long to make this video. I'm sorry. I failed you. And while I absolutely love this and I don't want to stop doing it for any reason, I got a lot going on. So if I have to miss a week, I'm gonna miss a week. Either way, please stay safe and healthy, and thanks for watching.